It's speed up shift work and overtime for you. If you want to make a living wage, that's what you've got to do. It really makes me wonder when I hear some people speak of how we fought for the 8-hour day or 40 hours a week.
In May '68, I worked in France. I was a journalist working at the French radio and television. Then, however, getting arrested, being interrogated, and eventually being expelled.
It was the first act of the new interior minister, the very first act. He was installed 11 o'clock in the night, and by 12:30 he had signed and sent my expulsion order. And at 2 o'clock, the cops, 20 of them, arrived at our flat.
And all the time I didn't know what was happening with the 3 kids, and they were using that as a threat. They were actually saying in the interrogation, "Do you ever want to see your children again?" Then, coming to England suddenly from this incredibly exciting, lifeful, hopeful Paris, it was unbelievable, the shock. I knew there was a film which had been made by French film students.
And Anne imported the gamut of the French film students' products during May '68.
Some of the people that I'd met in Cuba were in touch with Anne Schlacker, who'd just come from France with the French footage of Enema, and we started a little group at first, just showing the French film.
And I was on the left in the YCL, very much involved in the anti-Vietnam War campaign, the anti-Springboks campaign, and so it's a small contingent, it's a small thing, the left in Britain. So you heard about Cinema Action, and they were the group that were doing something.
When did you hear of the working class owning or controlling the press?
68, 69, I studied at Leicester University, and there I studied properly, but also I became very involved in this anti-Vietnam War campaign. And then turned up Schlacker with his projector in 1969.
I mean, there wasn't formal membership as such. It was, it was more a sort of process of, is it osmosis? More that sort of process where you gradually get involved, go along, do something.
The equipment was horrifically expensive. And it became very, very obvious very early on that the means of production were hugely important for a film collective. And there again comes Richard.
Richard was a film producer with his own company, and he was he was making his living by commercial films. But when Cinema Action started with his practical work in the beginning of '69, he opened his studio at night, and they could edit, and also he provided the camera.
Our idea is propaganda by deed. We're hoping to show that small groups can take on the authorities and win conclusively, despite all odds. Having done this, the Squatters groups will spread, direct action groups will spread. Groups which are trying to take power away from the authorities in small ways will spread all over the place.
Obviously, because of their experience in May '68, they were all enthralled with the idea of film as a propaganda weapon. But I don't think any of them had any first-hand experience of filming.
But when, for instance, Eduardo, who was trained as an editor and who actually worked on quite a good film, when he took a major role in making the shipyard workers. It improved a lot technically.
And also politically, because, I mean, the reason he was in England was because he was a deserter. He refused to fight in the colonial wars. And when I saw that there were shipyards in Glasgow going to be occupied, I asked him when he was passing, I said, would he like to come to Glasgow and film for Cinema Action? And he said, of course. And from then onwards, that was it.
This ship was built in the Scots Division, been launched in the Scots Division, it's been docked here. We have the assurance from the Tuckmen's Union that they will not move any ship to any port without the authority of the Coordinating Committee. And it is.
They occupied, but they then went on to do an amazingly further step of working in, moving all management, all government, all press, except for Cinema Action, and building ships. They completed 16 ships while they were doing their work in. And I mean, they were so brilliant, but when they started the work in, we were inside, and they never thought of us as press.
I would like to welcome you to this meeting on behalf of the UCS Joint Shop Stewards Committee. We gave them interchangeability, flexibility, mobility. We sat on production committees that at one time the trade unionists would never agree to sit in on. So does this not ring out a warning? Because if this is going to be the attitude towards it, then there's not going to be any cooperation from any part of the working class.
That's what Cinema Action did on its best days. It sort of went there and it captured historical moments, which I think were brilliant, you know what I mean, and very valuable.
But in the time that Cinema Action operated, we seen this as a life or death struggle for the world, and we were all involved in it, and there was no escaping it. And you engaged full time. It didn't mean you didn't have a laugh and a drink and a booze and a shag and or whatever, a smoke or whatever as well. But the direction of your life was bringing around a change in the balance of power from the rich and the powerful to the poor and oppressed.
What is national interest?
Beg your pardon?
What is the real national interest?
Well, I think basically to end the rat race, you know? This is my interest in life. I can't leave my kids a legacy, but I can leave them a better society. And this is my sense of purpose in life.
It's of course very nice when you are making a film and then there is sort of a victory. But it's quite obvious that there cannot always be a victory, and the general development in Britain and Europe and Germany was working against the working class.
Suddenly the struggles is falling away, and the one organisation that will come along and treat them eccentric people who are strange, now they must be artists. So the BFI, they fit with a little bit of sort of jiggery-pokery, can sort of remake them as filmmakers, the irony to end all ironies.
If such a time comes that they wouldn't pick up enough people, then they're going to take our bus off the road, and it means us losing our job because we wouldn't get there.
It was less political in the sense there was the political momentum had gone down, so it was less political. But in a certain sense, there was a deeper, there was a possibility to delve deeper into certain aspects of politics of things.
But the other thing is, I mean, a lot of people in Cinema Action went on to make a lot of other films. I mean, you did, and I did, and Steve, and, you know, so I think that's the other thing, is that, you know, in the end of the 60s, there were literally a handful of people interested in making films, but it wasn't that Cinema Action went on to something else. We all went on to something else.
I only know that in my group in Germany, which I started to build up, which is called Arbeit und Film, we took the same notion. We said we make films with the people, for the people, with the workers, for the workers. And I participated in Germany in hundreds of showings. Well, we were all working for the revolution to happen, and we knew it would take a big struggle in consciousness of people to actually put efforts to that. That is an immense struggle. But the revolution didn't happen in Britain, and it didn't happen in Europe.
A revolution is when you want to take control, is when you want to start running the factories yourself. And although there were some examples like the UCS and things, there wasn't much of that in a lot of places.
That's still there as a question, isn't it? It's still an open question. How do you actually develop things and make films, or create discussions, create people talking and thinking about a bigger narrative, which is really about taking on the system that exists in the world, and how you start to talk about that and engage people in it, that they see it, that's what we're talking about.
What does one do now in today's politics? I feel the importance of how do you get that collective work and organisation and action going again. And it's a pretty desperate time now, it's a very desperate time now. There is, one hopes, that the young will again come up and organise and come together in collectives to precisely, be it in film or whatever, why you come together and you become a collective, but work, learn, discuss, battle, struggle, action